Hello and welcome to today's video. Today we're here and it's another episode of the Racing Debrief. And today we have the Azerbaijan Grand Prix to go over, and that's it. So obviously, the time this video is going out, the NASCAR race in Dover should be starting. Got postponed on Sunday to 12 p.m. Eastern time due to rain. So, interesting move to see them straight up postpone a race hours before it started to another day. I haven't ever seen that before. But, I guess looking at the weather, looking at the time it takes to out the track, it made sense. Normally, you spend your whole day sitting in front of the TV hoping that it races at some point. So it's good to just see, hey, it's happening tomorrow. So, yeah, we're on that. So we won't have anything to talk about that race because it starts when this video goes out. So we'll have a little bit of discussion of that going out next week, maybe at the beginning or something like that. So today is mainly going to be focused on F1. We will touch on some NASCAR subjects later in the episode. So F1 Azerbaijan Grand Prix weekend started out qualifying on Friday. Of course, this was them switching up a weekend. Of course, we've been discussing that. This series of the Racing Debrief started the Australia weekend. So we haven't really had an F1 race to go over in it, but we will. So in that time, we talked about how the sprint was rumored to be changed, and then a few days ago, they confirmed it. And I don't mind qualifying on Friday. If you want to get rid of a session, whatever. I mean, I feel that the best route is probably just cut out a day if you really want to cut down on the weekend. But I don't really see it to be necessary. I think that in a sport, like racing, you want to have the drivers and the teams get practice. Seeing the decrease in practice in F1 and in NASCAR over the few years has been interesting. Of course, NASCAR used to have preseason testing. They don't really do that at all, and practice sessions at all. F1, even since I've started watching F1, has decreased in preseason testing. And, now they're on the let's cut out practice. And I feel like in racing, practice is good. You need that. A lot of the time in a racing series, they go to a track once a year. NASCAR does a little bit of the 2 times at a venue, but I mean, F1 is one race a year. So these drivers see the track once, and you can simulate it, but nothing's like doing the real thing. The next thing is when you cut out practice, it puts so much emphasis on you getting it right. And if you do have a mistake, your whole weekend's just ruined. And if you fully eliminate practice, like you see sometimes in NASCAR, and something goes wrong with your car that you would have been able to find in a practice session, then it's just over. Most NASCAR races think there's 15-minute practice. That's not enough time. F1 having 1 hour, not enough time. I don't mind the practice sessions. This year I haven't watched as much because I tend to, I have been working more on the days the practice sessions are on that Friday, so I don't really get the chance to just, watch it. I'm either doing video making or working. It's one of the two. So, yeah. But I think more practice is better. So giving the teams 1 session, 1 hour, not the best. And when Park Ferme comes in, that's it. You're set up. So that's it. 1 hour to perfect your setup. I mean, F1 even a few years ago used to have 90 minutes of practice in each session. So it was an hour and a half, 3 hour-and-a-half sessions. Then they cut it down to 3 1-hour sessions. And then with the sprint weekends, you had 2 1-hour sessions. And this, you had 1 1-hour session. So I don't like it. I would like to see the teams have 2 or 3 practice sessions. Because I would try to watch one. I would try to watch one on Friday. I'd throw it on and watch it. By the way, we had qualifying. Charles Leclerc got the pole, as he's done in Azerbaijan for a few years. So you jump to Saturday, and you have another qualifying session. And for me, Saturday morning, watching the sprint shootout or whatever they called it, um, it felt redundant. It felt repetitive. And they were even saying on the broadcast, like if you do something twice, what are you gonna get different? Expect a different result. I mean, that's doesn't make sense to me. Why you need two qualifying sessions? I get that they want to create excitement on each day and have every session be, wow, because it's Liberty Media thinking that you need to do that, which we discussed that in a previous episode of this. That it's not necessary just to change the fundamentals of every single thing. Overall, it's going to hurt the sport. If you want to check that out, that video was F1 making the same mistake that NASCAR made in the 90s. Because it is. They're chasing, a small group of people that aren't going to stick around as fans, or they're not going to, really care. They'll watch because it's trendy. And, they got to realize that. A majority of the people that got into F1 in the most recent years is because it's trendy and because it's cool. But are those people going to stick around in 2 or 3 years? Like, I always say, because I want to distinguish myself from other people that watch it because it's trendy. Like, I'll admit the first time I watched an F1 race was after watching Drive to Survive. I'll admit that. But I just needed a way to get into the sport. And I feel like that helped more than anything. It just put me in a spot where I could say, okay, I want to watch this. I want to check out the racing series. I love racing. I love cars. I mean, if you've seen the channel throughout basically the whole history, I have. I just need something to get into it. But are a majority of those fans that, got into it because of that series really going to stick around? And is it worth changing the fundamentals of the sport for those fans who are casually watching it because Formula One's trendy, because of a Netflix show? Is that what you want to chase? Because that feels like what they're doing. The show created this drama that doesn't realistically exist in F1 to the extent that they put on the show. And people watch it and say, that's not actually how it is. But then they try to generate this more drama, more excitement than what you may see. And it's unfortunate to see them going down that path, because when I watched that sprint shootout, I was just confused as to why it was a thing. Because, quite frankly, it felt useless. Charles Leclerc got the pole. The Red Bull drivers were second and third. They were flipped. Perez was second. Max was third compared to regular qualifying. But that's the main difference. I mean, some of the drivers higher up, George Russell was, I think, like 4th or 5th compared to being 11th, where he didn't have as good a qualifying. So it boosted that a little bit, but I don't really think the sprint needs its own qualifying. I like the thing for me is I'm okay with a few sprints. I liked the 3. I thought that was kind of fun. Switch it up. I adapted the sprint idea into our GTA Race Plus. If you guys ever watched that on the channel, we adapted that into it. Every 5 episodes we have a sprint. So I'm not against the idea of a sprint. And I don't think that is the issue. I think that the cutting out practice sessions, cutting out multiple, and putting in useless sessions, especially the way that the sprint went. And when I say sprint, I mean sprint qualifying. The way the sprint qualifying's format works doesn't provide anything different, really, than the regular sprint or the regular qualifying. The sprint shootout qualifying session, again, don't know why it needs to be called sprint shootout, just a sprint qualifying. I guess because they called the sprint race sprint qualifying before just calling it F1 sprint. Too much names for things. The main thing to me, okay, is the way the session went. It's 44 minutes, so you cut out about 16 minutes because normally qualifying is about an hour. Each session's a little bit shorter. You have 12, I think it was like 12, 10, and 8 or something like that, compared to like a 16, and then I think it's 16, 12, and 10 or something like that for regular qualifying, in that range. So you make it a little bit shorter, and then you require the teams to use new mediums in round 1, new mediums in round 2, new softs. But again, you're eliminating 5, you're having 10 go. And then you see something that comes up where if you don't have a new set of softs, you can't qualify. That feels really dumb to me as well. Lando wasn't able to qualify in the last session because he didn't have a new set of soft tires. So he made it into the top 10, but then had to start 10th because he didn't have new tires. That felt dumb. And if you want to do, cost savings and cost cap and all that stuff, to add it in a second qualifying, in the scenario where something can happen, like you've seen at the end of the qualifying, Charles Leclerc hit the wall and broke his front wing. Or Logan Sargent crashed into one of the barriers. I think it was turn 15. He hit a barrier and couldn't do the sprint race. So Williams, that's going to cost them money. I think was it Yuki Tsunoda lost a tire? Yeah, Yuki Tsunoda lost a tire. That might have been the sprint race though. But still, you're introducing these things when you want to save money and cut the amount that the teams can spend. And then Ferrari has to get a new front wing because Charles Leclerc hit the wall. And Williams has to rebuild half their car because Logan Sargent hit the wall. Like, it feels dumb. It does feel dumb. Yeah. I'd like to see qualifying for the sprint shootout be completely different from regular qualifying. If you're going to do it. If you're going to do it, a lot of people said one-shot qualifying. I'm not against it. Again, I don't think you need it. I think if you put your qualifying on Friday and then, I don't know, put a practice session, but don't have the Parc Fermé rules, because that killed practice too, then you're good, But I think that there's things to tweak. I think, again, the one-shot qualifying made sense. Everybody goes out, you put on softs, do a warm-up lap, do a fast lap, and you're good. And that's it. If you mess up, you mess up. Because that introduces some excitement to the sprint. Because, say, Charles Leclerc hits the wall like he did in the last round of qualifying. Or something happens to a Red Bull driver, right? And they're further back. They're starting 20th. They're going to have to charge through that field. They're going to have 17 laps to charge up to try to get to 8th, right? Like, that's going to introduce some excitement to it. And I feel putting the qualifying for the race on Friday and then having the race on Sunday and then having its own event in the middle was a weird layout. I would have liked to see something different with that, maybe tweak it where Friday is the sprint shootout qualifying. The first event on Saturday is the sprint race. The second event on Saturday is qualifying for the actual race. Because that way then you get a little bit more excitement in there but keep the events together, right? Keep sprint and the actual race. Your first practice is your first practice for the whole weekend. Then you do your sprint qualifying, next day sprint race, then qualifying for the Grand Prix, then the next day is the Grand Prix. Do that. But yeah, I wasn't a fan. I was not a fan, I'll be honest. All right. So in the sprint itself, we had Max and George have their incident. George Russell decided that he was doing his typical driving into people, and decided this time it was Max that he was going to hit into, and then, blame the person. That's the George Russell way. But I mean, it added a little bit of interest to the end of it. the fact that Max was able to close up and get as close as he did to Charles Leclerc with a hole in the side pod was interesting. And then the interaction with Max and George at the end, that was good to see. I liked it. A little bit of spice, a little bit of interest in the weekend. But yeah, I mean that was interesting. I mean, George Russell drives into people quite frequently, and then blames them. So, not a surprise. So we go to the race on Sunday, and we fell asleep. No, the race on Sunday. It was an F1 race. I'm pretty sure my brother put in our group message. He wrote, "What do you guys think of the race?" And I responded with, "It was an F1 race." Because it definitely was an F1 race that took place. Yeah, I was kind of bored by it. I don't usually just say, "Hey, I'm bored by a race." Especially if it's a race you know the track doesn't provide the most excitement. Like, okay, you kind of expect it's gonna be not the most interesting thing. But Azerbaijan typically provides some quality races, some heat. But man, was it was it boring? Um, Max got the lead from Charles pretty early in, and Perez came through pretty much right after. Mercedes made an interesting call to pit Lewis Hamilton. And then Nick DeVries' car said no because he hit the wall and broke it. Nick DeVries not having a good start to his career. That's unfortunate to see. I definitely thought he'd do a little better than he has. But he hit the wall, broke the wheel on the left side, so he couldn't turn. Where he went off, there was a reason for a safety car to come out. So Red Bull pit Max before the safety car, like they've seen his car and they decided to pit him. So he ended up coming out in, I don't even know where he came out, like 7th, but safety car came out. He moved back up to 3rd and passed Charles right after that. So Red Bulls kind of just took off, and that was most of the race. Genuinely nothing took place. It was like you had that Australia vibe where Alonso was gonna catch up to Lewis and the gap widened, and he's gonna get, and it didn't happen. It was like that against Charles. Alonso was making a move and then didn't. And you seen it, Max and Checo. Max kind of fell back, and he was starting to catch up towards the end, but nothing really took place there. Another Red Bull won too, so that was exciting. But you had Esteban Ocon pitting at the end of the race. That was really the most dramatic part. It was Ocon and I think it was Hulkenberg. Both of them had stayed out and didn't pit until the end of the race. Ocon came in as they were going on to lap 51 in the race, and they were setting up the little gates for park for my area to sort of chill, bring the cars into all that. Photographer's running out onto the pits as he's coming in. I don't understand why that happened. It definitely was a scene from old F1 footage to see where he was running on the pits as the cars are going, or even back fans running the track as the race is ending. It had that vibe. But why that happened in a race in 2023, why the photographers were even running out, going onto that last lap, when there's a car still out there, you know that car's not pit yet. They're going to have to pit. Like, I don't know, but even in a scenario, even if that didn't happen, why would they be on the pits until everybody crosses the line and is on the cooldown lap? I get a few photographers got to run over and get those pictures as the cars cross the line. But I don't understand why they're all there. So I know it's going to be investigated by the FIA, and they'll probably make up a rule that will do something. Like, they made their rule about cars going on the wall, or the teams on the wall as the cars came across the line. But Red Bull did that, and there was no mention of what happened. So is that a fine? I don't know what happens. Uh, because the Red Bull team ran out to celebrate the drivers coming across the line and hung on the fence. So who knows? Who knows? Who knows what they're doing? Again, the FIA made it a big deal that Lewis Hamilton had a nose piercing. So they're on some shit. All right, that's enough F1 for this week. Next week is the Miami Grand Prix. So we'll look at the Miami Grand Prix when that comes up. On to some NASCAR topics. Of course, the continued list of the top 75 greatest drivers continues. So this week, Carl Edwards, Ronnie Hornaday Jr., Jeff Burton, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and Bobby Labonte joined the list. And again, all deserving names to be on the list. We'll start with Carl Edwards. Champion Xfinity Series. 28 wins in Cup, I believe. Again, deserving. Two-time runner-up in the championships. 2008, 2011. And honestly should have won 2016 if NASCAR didn't have their mystery cautions that they always used to do. But yeah. Goddamn. Good to see him get on there. Obviously, people haven't really seen much from Carl Edwards since he retired at the beginning of 2017. But, yeah, I mean, Carlos being on it was exciting to see. I know my mom was excited. She was always rooting for Carl Edwards back in the day. So when she seen that he was on the list, she was definitely excited. So it's cool to see that all of her favorite drivers on the list. Yeah, I was excited for that because she was excited about it. So, yeah. I mean, I remember back when we went to the NASCAR race in 2013 at New Hampshire. We were at the Fastenal hospitality tent. He came over and he was doing some speaking there. My mom was so excited to see him. So, with him being on that list, she's very excited about that. So, that was cool to see. Next, we got Ron Hornaday Jr. Of course, four wins, 4 championships in the Truck Series. I mean, it's NASCAR's top 75. You don't have to just be a Cup Series champion, Cup Series winner. You know, he didn't really do much in the Cup Series, but in the Truck Series, absolutely killed it with those 4 championships. 100% deserving. Jeff Burton, 21 Cup wins. Did he ever win an Xfinity Championship? Kind of interested. I don't even know much of Jeff Burton, if I'm honest, compared to the other drivers. Let's see. What has he done? Okay. No. So no championships in the series, but 21 wins in Cup, 27 wins in Xfinity, and he won the Southern 500, 1999, and 1999, and 2001 Coke 600 winner. Okay. I should also mention Carl Edwards won Southern 500, maybe Coke 600. Let's see. Did he win Coke 600? Yeah, 2015. I thought he did. Okay. So, Carl Edwards did have 28 wins, 38 in Xfinity, 2007 champion, 6 truck wins, 2015 Coke 600, and 2015 Southern 500. So, yeah, deserving for sure. Let's see any other Ron Hornaday stats. I'm kind of interested now. Obviously, he did win 4 Xfinity races as well. 51 truck wins. Okay. So, 4 championships, 51 truck wins. That's good. Impressive. Next, we got Dale Jr. Let's go off of this page and go back to our view of myself page. Dale Jr. next on the list. 26 Cup wins, 2 Xfinity championships. How many Xfinity wins does he have, though? I think he's got like 20 or 30 of those. Let's see. 24 Xfinity wins. So, yeah. Again, another deserving driver. Obviously, seeing him on his podcast talking about that when he got announced on it, being on the same list that his grandfather and his father are on. Super, super cool for him to be on that. And then the final one, Bobby Labonte, the 2000 Cup Series champion. And yeah, I believe he's got about 20. I think he's got 21 Cup wins along with Jeff Burton. Yep, 21 Cup wins, 10 Xfinity wins, and an Xfinity championship. Also winner of the Coke 600, Brickyard 400, and Southern 500. Oh, how could I forget? Dale Jr. also won 2 Daytona 500s. So, those crown jewel wins are big on there as well. And, of course, Dale Jr. winning 4 in a row at Talladega. That's also insane. But all these drivers super, super deserving to be on this list. I'm excited to see the next 2 weeks. Of course, this all culminates with a big event with every driver. It's on the top 75 list. Invited to celebrate at Darlington. So, all the drivers that are available to go to that event will get together and have a big celebration of 75 years in NASCAR. So, that should be a cool thing. So, obviously, before we dive into the final topics here, who else would be on the 75 list? So, looking at it now, there are basically, they've left most of the champions to be announced. So, you had Bobby Labonte, Tony Stewart, Kyle Larson, and Chase Elliott. Those 4 were announced as the champions that weren't on the list in 1998. They're all drivers that have won championships since then. That obviously weren't on the list because then the drivers that won championships after 1998 that were on the list, Dale Jarrett and Jeff Gordon, both winning championships after. But everybody else that's won a championship, basically everybody since 2000, besides Jeff Gordon's 4th championship, is not on the list. So, on the original 50. So, Bobby Labonte's added Tony Stewart, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott. So, basically, the 2 champions that won the close of the list and the 2 most recent new champions. So, left to go on the list, you got Matt Kenseth, 2003 champion, Kurt Busch, 2004 champion, Jimmy Johnson, 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, and 16 champion, so 7-time champion. Then you got Brad Keselowski, Kevin Harvick. You have Kyle Busch, Martin Truex Jr., Joey Logano. So that's 8 drivers that you know are going to be on the list. I didn't list all the championship years after Jimmy Johnson. Brad Keselowski won 2012, Kevin Harvick 2014, Kyle Busch 2015 and 2019, Martin Truex Jr. 2017, Joey Logano 2018 and 2022. So, all those drivers are going to go on the list. You know what's going to happen. So, that leaves two spots left. I was really, really trying to think of who it's going to be. And it's difficult. I feel like it's going to be somebody that's truck or Xfinity. If you think of it. Let's see. Because who's on the top 75? Let's see. I mean, you know, people say Sam Ard. Not on the list. Obviously, that would be a little bit of a throwback to, you know, drivers that could have been on the list in the 50 greatest, but I mean, 22 Xfinity wins, 2 championships. Always has wild stats. You always see his name mentioned on a lot of the lists of like drivers that achieved things in Xfinity Series. He's always high on that list. So yeah, it's one of those things that he's a guy that not being on the list in the 50 greatest could definitely get on the list for 75 greatest. I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of those drivers. So you also, if you look at trucks, you got Jack Sprague. A lot of people say he should be on it, which not a bad option either. 3 truck championships. If you want to talk about, you know, the lower levels, I mean, 28 wins and 3 truck championships. Pretty much the only driver close to that being Ron Hornaday Jr., who's on the list. Because, I mean, championship-wise, the next closest is Matt Crafton, who doesn't have the wins. He doesn't have the same amount. He's close, but he's got 15 compared to Jack Sprague having 28. So those would be 2 names I'd look out for potentially being on it. Yeah. Those are my guesses. So the final thing is we had the Xfinity Series race at Dover. Ryan Truex absolutely dominated that. But it's cool to see him get a win. Of course, not running a full schedule, so it's cool to see a part-time driver that has never won a race pulling up, getting a win, and honestly, pretty dominant win. I think he led 120, 140 laps of that race. Something like that. So absolutely dominated, killed that race. But yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. I'm excited though to see the race on Monday, which should be happening as this video goes out. And of course, we'll give a little bit of a breakdown of that. I'm excited though to see how the tires perform because they were not looking good in the practice. The little bit of practice that there was, they were absolutely getting torn up, which is super, super cool. I'm not against it, but I'm going to see how they perform in the race. A little bit different. I mean, it's been raining all day. I mean, a lot of storms to come this way. Come to Connecticut had to have gone through Delaware. So seeing these storms, the rain that we've been getting today, definitely makes sense why the race was canceled. But seeing the amount of rain we've gotten, I would imagine there's no rubber on that track. So we'll see. But either way, thank you for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Next week we'll be back with more excitement. Miami Grand Prix review. We're going to have a little bit of that Dover recap for you guys. We're going to have more drivers on the NASCAR Top 75 list and What's the NASCAR race? Kansas. So Kansas, Dover, Miami, top 75. So much. See you guys next week.